Throughout much of human history, farming has been at the center of society. However, as growing populations have increased demand for food and improved agricultural technologies have arisen, there has been a drastic shift in the relationship between people and their food. During the 20th century, the increase in world population was 3 times greater than the entire previous history of humanity, an increase from 1.5 to 6.1 billion in just 100 years. One of the main agricultural technologies that revolutionized modern farming is artificial fertilizer. Fertilizer is any substance used to add nutrients to the soil to boost soil fertility and facilitate plant growth. As crops grow, they extract nutrients from the soil. Some of these nutrients include compounds of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. The crops are harvested and taken to be sold to consumers. When this process is repeated over time, the quantity of the nutrients in the soil is depleted, which results in the soil becoming less fertile, causing the crops to grow poorly and only result in a small harvest. Since the beginning of agriculture, ancient farmers used fertilizer to help facilitate the growth of their crops. Egyptians, Romans, Babylonians, and early Germans have all been recorded using minerals and/or manure to strengthen the yield of their farms. Since these new man-made fertilizers contain nutrients that are readily available in large quantities, expedites the growth and yield of plants. In recent history, large industrial farms use massive quantities of synthetic fertilizers to accelerate the growth and yield of crops without incurring significant costs.
While fertilizers are designed to increase plant growth, they are not always created with soil health in mind. As crops grow, they use key nutrients such as potassium, nitrogen, and selenium, leaving the soil depleted. And that's where fertilizer comes in. Farmers replace these nutrients with fertilizers that are engineered perfectly to replenish the soil with ideal ratios of nutrients, and they work almost immediately. Due to the effectiveness of artificial fertilizers, they have become massively overused, causing negative effects to soil health, waterways, and public health. This creates a cycle of environmental damage. As fertilizers continue to be added, even more fertilizer is needed to help plants grow in the nutrient-lacking soil. Fertilizers are used far too much due to their low cost and rapid effectiveness. In turn, humans altered the global nitrogen cycle through the overwhelming application of artificial fertilizers. This practice has resulted in both the availability and the mobility of nitrogen over the entire planet. Even though artificial applications of nitrogen occur regionally, their influence permeates to other regions and even globally. Moreover, humans have approximately doubled the rate of nitrogen input into the terrestrial nitrogen region, with these rates still increasing. This is problematic because many of the planet's terrestrial and marine ecosystems are naturally adapted to the supply of available nitrogen in the atmosphere. So when excess nitrogen is added, it causes an imbalance, which then leads to losses of soil nutrients that are essential for the longevity of soil and planet health. For example, the additions of the nitrogen into grassland ecosystems in England have managed to increase dominance in a few nitrogen-demanding grass species, and in turn dominating many other plant species in the area. The loss of diversity caused by nitrogen alterations can affect other aspects of ecosystem functions, like the ability for ecosystems to adjust to naturally occurring imbalances. Studies have found that plant fertility in species-poor ecosystems as a consequence from nitrogen addition were much less stable when the region experienced a major drought. Though there is an abundance of evidence that proves that the alteration of global nitrogen cycle is negatively affecting a multitude of aspects of the environment, there have been benefits to the human population. The mass production of food through industrial farming and agricultural innovations like fertilizer has allowed society to focus on progression. Moreover, some foods whose growth was facilitated by chemicals in the fertilizers have been studied and proven to contain more nutrients than those grown in natural fertilizer. Nitrogen is not the only chemical in fertilizer. Selenium is also a common compound found in nature and also manufactured as an ingredient in artificial fertilizers. For humans, selenium facilitates the production of antioxidant enzymes and is involved in the role of reproduction, thyroid hormone metabolism, and DNA synthesis. In Nordic countries, which are generally selenium-poor areas, selenium was purposefully added to fertilizers to help increase the amount of selenium in food grown. This facilitation of selenium was successful because the overall human selenium concentration increased to an optimal level in the human diet. Increased levels of selenium in the soil does not negatively affect ecosystems. However, this is an example of how complex the issues of the effects of artificial fertilizers really are. Although artificial fertilizer use serves human needs through hyper-agriculture production, their environmental consequences are serious and long-term. This method of farming does produce the largest concentration of food for the least amount of money, and in some instances even increases the nutritional value in foods. However, it contributes to a multitude of issues, including increased soil erosion, loss of biodiversity, and pollution. Modern methods of farming using artificial fertilizer is a temporary solution for a growing world population, but not a long term solution.